One thing that is very prominent, we know in our policy dialogues, are public distribution system and the National Food Security Act. And rightly, we have Mr. Amaresh Kumar with us, who heads the Institute of Food Security, which is a training institute for FCI. So he is the person who drives the training modules for all the people who are linked with the public distribution system till the ground level. And therefore, I'll invite him to give his views on the policies and what Professor Pingali has just said. And Amaresh, I'll request you to come here so that we get your voice clear. Thank you.
One cannot disagree with the imperative that has been highlighted and emphasized by Professor Pingali, that so far the food policy has been actually stuck up with the staples only, and this calorie-centric approach, which only talks in terms of this caloric requirements and actually does not take into account the requirement and the importance of other micronutrients. So that aspect one has to agree with, because we are already late in that, and we are still talking about food security, still in those, what I say, primitive terms, that whether at the national level we are having sufficient food grains or not. NFSA, as you have already remarked and mentioned, sir, that it has the intent of accommodating all this. It talks about this paradigm shift in the food policy framework as such, so that it gets to address very effectively the micronutrient aspects of the food policy also, rather nutritional policies. But then again, it has its limitations in the sense that this is just a policy. The intent has been articulated in that, but there is not much in terms of concrete programs towards that. Only thing is that they are passing references that this also is envisaged in this act, and the respective state governments, if they come out with some certain concrete programs, then the central government will be giving financial assistance for all these programs. But the reality remains that so far nothing concrete has come from any of the state governments, except one or two, which keep finding reference very frequently in the research papers. My experience, in this particular context, will be relevant to a very specific question, that why the government has failed, despite all its efforts also, in procuring non-staples. Because we have been trying to procure non-staples, especially pulse and then coarse grains also. Millets also we have been trying. But for the last 5-6 years, despite our efforts, we have not been able to, deliver with the same efficiency as we do it in case of wheat and rice. So the procurement machinery as such, the government machinery as such, and its related infrastructure, plus the attitude of the manpower, has a certain bias towards the staple grains. Why this bias? That is the question. I have been trying to find for myself also. So that why this bias, why this reluctance among the people also, among the employees also, the government employees also, more at the implementation level. At the policy level, the pronouncements has been too emphatic and clear, and there is no ambiguity, and there is no doubt at that level, sir. But when it comes to implementation, that means actually procuring food grains, non-staples, there has been reluctance on the part of the staff in general, sir. And that reluctance is not attitudinal, sir. In the sense that it's not that we have been comfortable with wheat and rice, and that's why, generally in a government setup there is a reluctance to acquire new skills. But sir, the problem actually has been more intrinsic to the nature of the non-staples. I hint at the, in relative terms, the perishability aspect of that, sir. Wheat and rice is very close to our heart because of the simple reason that it is semi-perishable. And for us to store it, to purchase it, and to procure it, and to transport it, and then to distribute it. We have a very advanced state in the learning curve for this, sir. We are already there. So basically, sir, I would like to disagree with you at one point, sir, that policy bias is, I mean, that also may be true to an extent, sir. But there is something qualitatively intrinsic to the non-staples, sir, especially in terms of perishability, that makes it a non-favorite grains for us. That is the problem, sir. And there lies I think, there we have to focus our attention to, sir, while addressing this issue, that how to move away from the staples towards the non-staples, so that the overall consumption basket of our people becomes nutritionally more balanced and more enriched, sir. In this context, sir, the topic, the aspect which has already been discussed by you, sir, that is the infrastructures for these semi-perishables or perishables. Like, sir, even pulse is difficult to store for us as compared to wheat and rice. If it goes for more than 6 and 7 months, then we get reports about their damages and downgradations, qualitative downgradations. Similarly with coarse grains also, millets, whenever we have procured, then also, sir, after 6-7 months, we get signals that qualitative downgradation is taking place. Two approaches we may discuss about, sir, that how to fight this, in a sense, reluctance of the manpower to procure the non-staples. First thing I have already touched upon briefly, so that is the infrastructure part of it. That better storage options, the controlled environment storage options we need to have, sir. We still have 95%, more than 95% of the storage capacity with us, which is in the form of traditional godowns, sir, no controlled environments. Similarly, refrigerated transport is not an option for us, sir. I mean, that is not available with us, sir, either within the institutional framework of MSP-based procurement, sir, or beyond that in the market-driven things, sir. Second aspect, sir, for us, that is for the government machinery which is into procurement and distribution, sir, that is most important. The main problem actually, sir, that hinders this, that problem is related to the, sir, allocation of PDS only, sir. Unless and until these staple grains are made mandatory ingredients of this PDS bundle, sir, then we won't get any option, any alternative, any way, any channel to push our non-staple procured items out of the system, sir, because that is the only worry which is there at the back of the mind most of the time with the people who are in the government, sir. Let me articulate it further, sir. Suppose, sir, we buy, like I tried purchasing maize in Bihar, sir. I was there in 2015 and 16, sir. Then the major worry was, what will I do once I purchase it, sir? Because 6-7 districts of Bihar, sir, in that Kishanganj and Purnia area, I mean, every year we are having rakes after rakes being loaded to Gujarat and other places of maize, sir. And second reality about that is that, sir, that all that is going either for the animal feed, sir, or for ethanol productions. I mean, non-human consumption, sir. So we wanted to intervene in this market, sir, maize market, sir. But the first question that was being asked by my own people was that, sir, iska hoga kya? What will we do with that? Because the policy is that if you are purchasing coarse grains, say millets, then you have to wait for the procurement period to be over. After that only you can think of its disposal, either to the market or through auction, whatever. So first thing is that we don't know what will we do with the maize that we will procure, because there are no allocations, state-wise allocations, as it is there in the case of wheat and rice. So the first worry, because if you have to keep it for more than 1 year, then the charge sheets will follow, sir. Then the penal actions will follow against the employee, because then nobody comes to your rescue that you could not liquidate the stock that you had purchased because of non-allocations. So that's why, sir, the major worry, sir, why it is holding us back is that we don't have pre-announced, predetermined outflow of the grains that we would be purchasing in case of the non-staple things. So the practical aspect is that unless and until we take a decision that in PDS allocations for a particular household, this has to be the ratio of staples and non-staples, and these are bundled like this, that unless you lift this, you will be allowed to lift the other things also, sir. So unless this bundling is done, sir, in a mandatory way, we will not be assured of our outflow of whatever we purchase. So this actually explains the reluctance of FCI people, sir, in purchasing non-staples, sir, even if there is a policy. Other aspects you have already discussed, sir, about the prices. The pulse prices have been very low. MSP of pulses have been low all the time as compared to the market prices. That's why nobody comes to it. Like in one of the years, I was asked to purchase masoor, sir, but the procurement, the MSP was around 35 or 36, whereas the market price was 60 rupees. That's why nobody was coming to us, sir. So to that extent, the policy bias is there, sir, that in some of the years, the MSP has actually been lower than the market prices. So naturally, nobody will come to us. VGRI, that's bringing green revolution twist in India, sir. Unfortunately, that is again taking the same route, sir, as you already said. So that there I agree with, sir. But the two good news is that not only Odisha, even Bengal is doing well after that in terms of rice, sir, actually. So after this BGRI initiative, Bengal also is catching up fast, sir, and more or less they are self-sufficient now, sir. One last point, sir, the decoupling, actually, what you have discussed about, sir, that we need to decouple the two aspects of government policy. One is the producer protection and the other one is the consumer welfareism, sir. Here also, sir, I have a point of difference, sir, actually. The whole procurement system, actually, fortunately or otherwise, gets its sustenance from this coupling only. And I will not agree to that extent that it is always a kind of, sir, collusion or hobnobbing. This is basically a functional coupling. And in case of non-staples, this coupling is not non-existent. So this decoupling, as you argue, sir, that this decoupling has to be done, my point is that, so this coupling has to be reoriented. For that, we may have to decouple a little bit of this, but this has to be an exercise of recoupling, reorientation of the couplings. So that the part of it actually gets invested towards the non-staples. So these were my smaller points. Thank you.